Curious how to teach English to beginners? Think back to your childhood. Do you remember when an adult asked you something and you just stared open-mouthed, not because you were trying to be rude or anything, because it was all gobbledygook to you? That's exactly how ESL beginners feel in a language classroom. If the teacher starts rambling in a language they don't understand, they'll just get nervous and shut down. In your first English lesson for beginners, adults or otherwise, you don't want to scare the shush asterisk out of your students. Put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel if some stranger starts saying weird stuff at you and expects you to reply in the same alien language? It's nerve-wracking and mortifying, to say the least. Why beginners are a little more challenging. Absolute beginners are a tough nut to crack because they have no previous knowledge of English. They'll be coming to you raw, sometimes without knowing their ABCs, numbers, and common phrases like hello and goodbye. They won't know what nouns and adjectives are or how to form a sentence or question. On the other hand, false beginners think they know English because of past exposure. For instance, they've spent countless hours studying the language but can't hold an English conversation with a native speaker. It's up to you to diagnose your students' language proficiency levels and prepare teaching English to beginners material that works on the basics before you get into anything more advanced. 6 tips to get you through. Still scampering around trying to plan teaching English to beginners material? Here are 6 steps to teach English to beginners like a pro. 1. Keep it simple, stupid. This is one of the most important steps to teach English to beginners. Many newbie teachers make the mistake of using too much English when giving their students instructions, praise, or other feedback. For instance, saying, "You guys, now we're going to look at a new structure today, so let's get those textbooks out," in ESL beginner lessons makes you sound like you're from Mars. Instead, say something like this: "Take out your textbooks." Okay. With an OK sign if it's culturally appropriate in the country you're teaching in. Gestures are super important and help beginners better understand even when the classroom English seems clear to you. This tip will save your life if you're teaching English to complete beginners. 2. Always check for understanding. A rookie mistake many persons teaching English to complete beginners make is assuming that the students have understood the lesson or classroom instructions. In your first lesson for beginners, adults or kids, your students may not be accustomed to the Western way of schooling where students raise their hands if they don't understand. Instead, they maybe feel embarrassed to admit ignorance in front of the class and prefer to remain silent. When teaching beginners English, you need to read your students' body language to gauge whether they've understood and keep checking whether they've understood by asking, "Okay?" Students will let you know directly or subtly whether they've got it or not. 3. Give them lots of time to practice. In ESL beginner lessons, you cannot expect your students to get it immediately. You need to provide lots of examples, check for understanding, and then ensure that your class has enough time to practice what you've just taught them. When teaching beginners English, this usually means drilling the students, making them listen and repeat the language structure several times after you, and then having them practice it individually or with other students. Make sure to let them know that it's okay to mess up during practice time so they don't feel pressured to be perfect on the first try. 4. Show. Don't tell. One of the steps to teach English to beginners is to show, not tell, in the classroom. Students will better understand what you're trying to say if you use visual cues rather than spill a lot of words in their direction. What does this mean exactly? Instead of saying, "Let's learn the passive tense," practice how to teach basic English by giving clear examples of the target language structure with simple drawings, pictures, short skits, and exaggerated gestures. 5. Always use positive reinforcement. Here's another one of the steps to teach English to beginners. If someone gives an incorrect answer, don't yell, "You're wrong." Never, ever embarrass a student in front of the entire classroom. You'll scar him or her for life, and he or she will hate English forever because of you. Instead, try to create a friendly atmosphere in the classroom by praising your students often, even when they make mistakes. For instance, when doing English teaching for beginners, if they get the word right but just mispronounce it, say something like, "Okay, good." And then repeat the word with the correct pronunciation so that you don't shame the student and the rest of the class gets to hear the right way to say it. 6. Don't be boring. English teaching for beginners doesn't have to feel like pulling teeth. Instead, use lots of games to encourage your students to practice and produce the language you've taught. Also incorporate your students' interests so they want to learn. For instance, don't use Garfield if they love Hello Kitty. Also, nothing's more dull than making students read from the textbook and fill in lame worksheets with lots of text and zero images. The sky's the limit regarding how to teach basic English. Trawl the interwebs for awesome ideas that will keep your students engaged throughout the lesson. Get those beginners on the path to fluency. Teaching English to complete beginners is a fun challenge new and old ESL teachers. Although planning teaching English to beginners material may seem like a royal pain for the first time, you'll soon get the hang of it. It's also super rewarding when your learners get it. It's amazing to see them move from having absolutely no knowledge to being able to speak basic English. If you practice these tips, you'll soon become an expert at your first English lesson for beginners, adults, teenagers, or kids. Always keep praising your students so they don't feel discouraged when they mess up. Praise will help them become confident learners who aren't afraid of a foreign language. Who knows, maybe one day, they'll thank you for being the best English teacher they ever had.